in 5 seconds ago.
Yeah, we're going to start. Okay. And we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Howdy, everybody.
Welcome to the
Hope you're
Gravity
doing fine in quarantine. So, we are back for another episode of the stream. We, of course, have Max.
Hello.
Who usually does the intro.
Yeah.
But this is a hostile takeover.
You snatched it away from me.
We have me, faithful co-host. And for our guest today, we have Lynnea.
Hi.
I think you're the first guest that has said hi without us prompting you to do that.
I didn't know what to say. I was going to be like, stop bitches, but I was like,
So, the reason we have Lynnea on here today, I'm sure you saw the title. Today we are going to be talking about pandemics, which is pretty topical, considering that we are all in quarantine and the coronavirus, I don't care if we get demonetized, we need to talk about that, has become very widespread. Lynnea's mom is actually a nurse, and she's on the front lines of fighting the coronavirus. So big shout out to Lynnea's mom, and we actually have some pictures that we're going to show at the end from inside one of the hospitals that Lynnea's mom works at. So I want to say thank you to Lynnea for being here today.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Welcome.
Yeah, it's good to get some.
So let's go through the plugs.
Oh yeah,
and we'll get right into it.
Sure thing. Okay. This video is not intended for children under 13 years old. If you are under 13 years old, please do not watch this video, as the topics we discuss are meant for those with at least a high school level of education. If you are not 13, you will not understand the scientific topics discussed in this video. So go find something else to entertain yourself with if you're 13.
Like a 128. Oh wait, no.
Nope.
Wait, no. All
do you
mine
want
are just
money?
not for kids. Forget about that. Go watch Yo Gabba Gabba or whatever you kids watch.
Yeah, that's what 13-year-olds like,
I used to
right?
watch Yo Gabba Gabba all the time.
No.
Sebastian. No, okay, never mind. James. I think his name was.
James? I don't know James.
Anyways, visit the Gravity Max website. It's a Google Sites website. Also, check out the social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we have links in the description below. Also, follow Sebastian on social media and check out his YouTube channel, 128 Seconds, where he
posts every Wednesday.
Yeah, every Wednesday. Wow, you've really stepped that up. That's great. From just you had every other week with our alternating schedule on this channel, and now the fully independent 128 Seconds channel is running like twice as
twice as efficiently.
Yeah,
I calculated it. So because there's, I think it's 86,400 seconds in one day. It would take whatever amount. I think it was 625, 128 seconds videos for it to be like all of my content to be the length of one day. And with my current upload schedule, that would mean I would have to post once a week every week for the next 13 years.
Oh my god.
Wow.
So in 13 years, if I keep up with this channel, we will have one day of content opposed to the Gravity Max live stream, which we probably have over like 100 hours.
Oh, we pump it out. We have 100 hours. Well, maybe not quite. I bet we have somewhere around 70 or 80 hours, I would say.
70, 80? All right. Yeah. But it goes to show. But you learn quite a lot in just 128 seconds.
Yeah, definitely check him out. It's great. He's been my co-host for all this time, and so you should totally check out his channel. So next we've got my book, which is available on Amazon, and the link is in the description. I am currently working on the second book. I have finished the second draft a while ago, and I'm working on the third draft. And that'll be ready for November 1st, so get excited for that, the second book. But yeah, Sebastian has some books in the works, so eventually they might make it to the plugs page once he's ready to publish those.
If it's good enough. Yeah, I've finished chapter 1 so far.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be. I think I'm knocking it down to 18 chapters.
Oh really?
Yeah, one for each hour in one day on this planet.
Yep.
The planet I've talked about.
Yeah, you'll get that once you read the book.
I I hope I can get off, stop being lazy and crank out production on that, because I'm really invested into the story, and I think you guys will like it as well. So I'll try and get that to you guys as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Also, this isn't a plug page yet, but I am making Minecraft videos.
Oh yeah, you gotta check out the Minecraft series. It is on par with PewDiePie's, but it's just watching Max flounder is something.
Yeah, you gotta watch my Minecraft videos. I'll have a new one tomorrow at 1 p.m. and it'll be the second episode, episode 2, starting with episode 0 though. So I titled it like that for some reason. So yeah, check them out. Episode 1 is pretty funny, if I do say so myself. There are a few moments where I just kept watching it because I'm like, oh my god, how am I this bad at the game? But anyways, check those out if you want a laugh in these trying times, right? Care for an egg in this trying time.
These trying times.
Anyways, so pandemics. They are...
So, it's definitely topical.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is a disease? How does it spread? Why is it so pervasive? Why is it so important that we stay inside? What does flattening the curve mean? And how can we get a handle on our current situation? All these questions will be answered today on the Gravity Max live stream, episode 1 of season.
Yep. Yeah, so pandemics...
Let's start off with the basics, I guess. Or if
basics.
You have another comment.
All right. Yeah, so the basics of pandemics. So a pandemic occurs when a disease spreads worldwide and infects a large part of the population, right? I would say. Is that a good definition?
Yeah, I can bring up the actual definition.
Okay, bring up the definition. But yeah, some diseases will occur on occasion. Like there will be an E. coli outbreak because of food poisoning, stuff like that. But a pandemic is usually a communicable disease, which means that it spreads from person to person rather than just from infected food to person. So
the adjective pandemic means it's a disease that is prevalent over a whole country or the world. And what a pandemic noun is an outbreak of a pandemic disease, where pandemic is being used as an adjective in that sentence. So it's the outbreak that we're going to be focusing on, how it gets, why it is communicable, and how it gets passed around the planet or country.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Should I just let's speak?
Yeah.
Okay. So we start with spillover events.
I love that cover. It is such a meme. Off stream, I made some memes involving that monkey. It just looks like such a reaction image.
Yeah. Just the blur effect on it is
honestly.
Is the final. It's like the cherry on top. Yeah, this is a book by David Quammen. I have not read it. However, a lot of people in my class last year read it, because in our biology class we had book clubs, and those were in groups of 3. And we did that twice. I read The Origin of Species and The Elegant Universe, but this was an option, so some people read this book. And so the basic aspect here, you can see on this diagram to the left, a spillover event is when a virus or a bacteria, or I guess in this case a virus, right? A virus that infects an animal ends up infecting a human, and then it spreads from human to human. So that is where a lot of diseases originate, and that is where the coronavirus is believed to have originated. So yeah. So that's the basic spillover.
We're obviously going to talk about Plague Inc. a little later on. In that game, under the point of the game is you got to infect the entire world and then kill off all of humanity with a disease. But I feel it's the strategies in it are actually kind of accurate. because one of the first things in that game that you do is you put points into your transmission category, and one of the big transmission factors is, can it be passed through animals or not? And I've been beating like all of the viruses, and I might actually stream this later on, but I've been beating all of the viruses or the diseases on like Mega Brutal, which is like the hardest difficulty, and every time you need to like have it pass through like rats or bats or cats or like anything else that rhymes. But the animals there's a lot of animals, you know, on planet Earth, lots of them. So if a disease is able to pass from one animal to the next and able to go across species and like spill over, then it can infect the world in quite a short amount of time, considering all of like the animals. And not every animal takes showers. In fact, a majority of them do not. And a majority of animals do not wash their hands because they do not have hands.
Here's a question. Will you make sure that your stream is exactly 128 minutes long?
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, anyways, so yeah, animals tend to carry a lot of diseases. The coronavirus, it's believed to have come from bats right now.
Yes.
And so there's different ways that can happen exactly. If we look at those farm animals down below, like cattle, pigs, chickens, spillover events can occur when someone eats an infected animal. So that is like, there's a lot of concern about these superbugs, where a lot of our animals in factory farming are being overfed antibiotics so that they can be put in like disgusting conditions and not get a disease. But the problem with that is that it wipes out a certain amount of the bacteria and viruses, but a few survive, and those few that survive are stronger, you know, because they're the strongest and they are the only ones that are left. So then they proliferate, and then eventually you end up creating a disease that will not die in contact with antibiotics. So antibiotics will not work. So that's a concern because a lot of people eat meat. So that's like cattle, pigs, chickens. And like that's a staple of the American diet, you know, eggs and bacon for breakfast, hamburgers at your preferred fast food restaurant, like hot dogs at a baseball game. That is a lot of, you know, those are very iconic images. And a lot of the meat that we as people eat comes from these animals that have been factory farmed and have all these antibiotics. And the next disease might come from one of these animals just because we eat an infected animal and we end up getting a superbug. So that's a concern that scientists have, and that's why they don't want to overuse antibiotics. But that's not the only way a disease can spread. I don't think we know exactly how it went from bats to humans, right? It is true that in China, where this originated, like, there is some practice of eating bats.
I would say that's like pretty likely, you know?
Yeah. I just don't want
to diss eating bats. If you want to eat bats, sure. Like, I've mentioned this on many occasions. I would eat bugs because there's like a lot of protein in them, and if you can just get past the mindset that it's a bug, then like you can eat them. So I can't be one to like knock people for eating stuff, but it is a fact that if you eat a diseased animal and it's not properly like pasteurized or cooked or whatever, you probably will get that disease, that virus. Yeah. And so that could explain the real life spillover event that we had for this coronavirus.
Yeah. It's just important.
Lynnea, would you eat a bat?
I would not, but I have a question.
Yeah.
So I don't know if not all viruses can like spill over, right?
Yeah.
I think all viruses. Yeah, I don't think every virus has the potential to.
Yeah, but what makes it able to like to do that?
So it's
go ahead.
kind of like it's just evolution. So viruses, there are so many viruses. You know how they say there's like billions of bacteria on your hand, right? Even after you
Yeah.
wash your hands. Well, viruses are even smaller than bacteria. So however many bacteria you have, there's like 1,000 times more viruses. So there are so many opportunities for a random mutation to occur and for a virus to end up getting stronger or gaining the ability to infect humans. So it's just these random events. It's kind of like trial and error. Um, and yeah,
So there's nothing that like makes it able to do that. There's nothing like specific, like, oh, it has this.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
why it's
the purpose of a virus is
Yeah.
all it wants to do is make more of itself,
Mhm.
basically.
Okay.
So what it does, a single virus cell needs to, the only place it can make more of itself is inside a host cell.
Mhm.
And a host cell can be just a healthy cell in any mammal's or any animal's body. So the virus enters that cell, replicates in that cell, its replications go out onto other cells, they replicate. That's how it spreads throughout a body. They become infected with that virus, they spread that virus, and like however many virus cells enter another person's body, it replicates in there.
Mhm.
With the spillover event, it's just the same exact thing, except the first thing that got infected was like a bat, and the virus replicated, made copies of itself in the bat. Then somehow it went to a human, like either they ate it or they came into contact with the bat somehow.
Yeah.
That
So-
virus, those cells that were originally in the bat, make copies of themselves that go to the human cells, where it then spreads throughout their body, and that continues.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I just want to, we can talk about viruses more in a second. I just want to mention, yeah, about the whole like eating bats thing, right? I want to be
Mhm.
very, very careful because, we might get, I guess, in trouble for like spreading misinformation. So this isn't known. It's just known that it comes from bats. Another way that it might come from bats is, say, a bat bites a person. So kind of like the reverse of a person eating a bat, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, because if you think of rabies, right? If you ever get a bat stuck in your house or there's a raccoon like digging through your trash and you shoo it away but it bites you, the first thing that like when you call animal control and like maybe like the paramedics, they'll say, okay, we gotta like get you a rabies vaccine, like we gotta make sure that you don't have rabies. So a similar kind of thing could have occurred here, or it's just like them generally being there, like rats that spread the plague in the 1300s. They were just like there and just touched people, literally, not even like biting, just like brush past your leg and like there you go. So there are many ways that a spillover
Yeah.
event can infect someone, but yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about how it can infect the entire globe
Oh yeah. Okay.
with
So
globalism.
yeah. So globalism.
So, go ahead.
Globalism is essentially just the way that our modern world is more connected than ever, and that if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic, right? So just think like 6 months ago, if you wanted to like go to North Korea for some reason, right? You could get a flight there, like you could apply, you could get special passes, like pretty much anywhere in the world you have access to, like you could fly to Africa, you could fly to South America, China, Europe, right? Asia, you can go anywhere. And if you look at this, look at how many flights there are per day. Some places are just so riddled with flights that this like map representation is too dense and you can't even see it. But in the past, like in the 1700s, it would take months to get just from Europe to North America. And now that's just an 8-hour flight. So because our world has become more connected, which, has many benefits to it, it also comes with the drawback that a pandemic is a lot easier to spread. One instance of this is that during the Spanish flu back in 1918, it's a lot of like people say that World War I was partly responsible for the pandemic of the flu in 1918 because all of these soldiers that were infected or weren't infected, they all like came to France or like wherever, and they, you know, fought through the war, right? And then once the war was over, since they had all been in contact with each other, and since like the trenches were so just disgusting, I think you talked about that in a video, 128 seconds video, Sebastian. But yeah, the trenches were completely unsanitary, and you know, these people were in close quarters, so they fought in the war. They all got infected. Then they came home, right, and then they spread it to their hometowns. So, globalism and global travel and all that is what allows diseases to spread. If we think of the game Plague Inc. again, which we'll talk about more in depth later, the way that a disease like spreads to another country is you see an infected plane, or an infected boat. So globalism, it does get tied up into politics often, just the concept of globalism versus nationalism. However, it is a fact, like regardless of political opinion, it is a fact that increased globalism allows for increased travel between different places, and one of the drawbacks of that is that you end up with an increased likelihood of pandemic spreading. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
So yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you look at the stock of airlines right now, like you have $6 flights to Italy, as opposed to 6 months ago, like what, incredibly expensive $300 flights to different places around the globe. The reason it's gone down so much is because, you know, every time you're on an airplane and someone starts coughing, like even forget about the current pandemic, someone starts coughing, you kind of get a little pissed at them because you know that you're all sharing the same air, all of that stuff. But even going beyond that, even like if that entire plane gets infected, or even if that one person just stays like infected, them traveling to another country just opens up the possibility for them to spread it to that country, which Max basically said. But it's just, especially with the pandemic, it like helps it along.
Yeah.
So it's an unfortunate like side effect, and it like sucks. But you see, and people know that, like doctors, researchers, they all know that, which is why they're encouraging you to stay home and to not travel.
Yeah.
Like even back when it was just China was infected, scientists still came out saying you probably shouldn't travel. They didn't say stay home, but they said you should not travel. You know, outside of your country, because they were trying to stop this.
Yeah.
Because as you can see on the flight map here. Yeah. Sorry. What were you saying?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think around January 29th, I believe, January 29th or January 27th, something like that. At the end of January, the U.S., we instituted like a travel ban between China. So it said like, no, you cannot have any more, unless they're American citizens, but no one from China can enter the U.S. anymore.
Exactly. And basically, like if you look at it, you have flights leaving China go down to Australia, flights from Australia go to like that looks like Iraq, or at least they're over Iraq, and then a flight from Iraq goes to like America. Now that's how it like can get from China to America, even if we have a travel ban on China. You know, so no matter what, we were pretty much going to be infected. Like, look at the U.S.
Yeah.
Like, look at the U.S. You can't even look.
Yeah, exactly.
Because all of the planes are covering it. There are so many flights entering and leaving the U.S. I think it's probably more than any other country. So many flights going in and out of the U.S. And like, it just becomes a breeding ground for the virus, because any one of those thousands of planes could have an infected person on that. And then that virus just spreads across the country.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask Max, and then shortly after our guest, if the coronavirus was not here, what country would you like to travel to?
Oh, if it wasn't here, where would I?
Or where would you go, rather? This would need to be another country.
Okay. I would probably want to go to, like, Norway, like Scandinavia,
Yeah.
Iceland, Svalbard. Have you heard of
Nice.
Svalbard? It's a pretty cool place.
Yeah, we talked about that on the Future Societies
Oh, yeah.
one.
We talked about that.
The seeds.
Yes, the seeds.
The
Svalbard's
seeds.
cool. Yeah, I want to see like the midnight sun, they call it, and then...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Lynnea, how about you? If the coronavirus was not there, where would you like to travel in the world?
I'd always like to see my cousins, so Italy, I guess.
Italy,
Also, back to what you were saying about how like traveling, like people traveling.
Yeah.
The first guy to get it in New Rochelle, he walked around like 3 weeks sick. Went to Florida. Went to where else he went? It's like to another country.
Yeah, he went all over the place. Yeah, this dude just wanted to travel the world.
Yeah, he was in my mom's hospital until they transferred him to another one.
Wow.
But he walked around like 3 weeks completely sick, just like going everywhere. It was.
That's crazy.
He is an agent of chaos.
This is why New Rochelle people suck. But.
And that's New York, right? That's New York State. Just for anyone that doesn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so stuff like that, and that's why the CDC and like everyone has come out saying, do the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Don't do that, because he literally just like spread disease all over the place. You know?
And it's not like he didn't have symptoms. He was like really sick, and he still did that.
Yeah,
and it's like,
actually,
how retarded are you?
I think that's a perfect segue. That guy walking around. That's a perfect segue into our next slide, which is the R naught value. So Max, why don't you talk about that?
So the R naught value, and in the top left we have a scene from the movie Contagion, which we'll talk about later. But the R naught value is, the number of people that, well, I mean, we have the quote right here, so I'm just going to read that. The number of people that one sick person will infect on average is called the R naught. So this basically means that when you get sick with a disease, by the time that you've run your course, by the time that you're better again, how many new people will you have infected? And for the flu, that's on average, it's like 1 just for the common flu. So, you get 1 person infected. And we have these various diseases across the bottom here. And, they can get pretty high. But if you look at the coronavirus, the value is 2 to 3. Which is higher than the flu and a little under that of smallpox. So that's a little frightening. So the coronavirus is very contagious. That's like one of the big problems with it. Like when someone has the flu, when they're sick, you just like avoid them. You're like, oh, they got the flu. That's why people are being just so intense with this quarantine and self-isolation, because the coronavirus is so infectious. So something great, however, is that the R naught value, the naught stands for initial. So it's the initial value of this infection rate. But as time moves on and we have instituted measures against this disease, the value of R will end up decreasing. Since everyone's staying at home, and since coronavirus patients are quickly being put in isolation, the value of R has decreased because they aren't going to infect as many new people. So that's something great that we can do to sort of slow the growth of the coronavirus. That's what I would say.
Yeah. So that guy, that legend, that just walked around in New Rochelle or in wherever he went after.
Yeah.
Because of that R naught value, he was able to infect quite a lot of people, because of how infectious it is.
Yeah. And so the thing about R naught, which is interesting, is that this ties into what we're going to talk about next. But when you infect someone, now they are infectious too. So the rate of change of people infected increases as the number of people infected increases, which if we've got any calculus fans listening, right, that should be ringing some alarm bells of what kind of graph this may be in the number of infectious people. So when you infect someone, say that it's the flu, right, and the R naught value is 1. when you infect someone, now they are also like infectious, and then it'll divide, it'll be 4, then 8, then 16, and it'll continue like that. So yeah, it's the way that diseases spread is very frightening because it just comes upon you almost instantaneously, and you never know what hits you when there's a pandemic. That's the thing.
Yeah. So yeah, that's, like you said, that ties nicely into the next one.
Yeah. All right. So we've got exponential growth. This is an imperfect graph of exponential growth because this is the model. This is the coronavirus, number of cases. But, it's very close to the true exponential curve, which is very fascinating that pandemics will actually follow this curve. For a while, at least, they'll follow this curve. Don't worry. Think of the graph y equals e to the x. It goes off to infinity so quickly. And that's just something that people need to understand because there's a lot of people that were calling any measures that we were taking against the coronavirus. They were saying that's fear-mongering, right? That's unnecessary. Only 3 people have it in this town, right? Well, 3 people will turn into 6 people after 2 days, and then after another 2 days it'll be 12 people, 24, and it increases very quickly like that. I think the doubling time for the coronavirus has been 2 or 3 days, right? If I'm correct.
Yeah, maybe. I could check that.
It's very quick. So at first you might be like, wow, someone in town has it, and then a week later it's wow, quite a few people have it, and then another week later it's everyone has it. Our hospital is completely overwhelmed. Madness, pretty much.
How much did you say? I remember before we did the stream, we were talking how many people in New York have it. It was 1,000.
Oh,
Would you say the number?
How many people are?
You were talking about it before when we.
Here, I could check that for you.
How many people have it? Oh, how many new cases are there? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that's what you're saying. Yeah, we were talking about it before the stream.
How many new cases? That I do not know that value right now. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Oh, okay, I thought we were talking about it before, but I guess not.
Oh, okay.
Currently, here, let me hop into New York real quick, and then I'll tell you what it was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, New York is the epicenter.
So yeah, we're talking about New York City here.
Yeah.
Right now, there are 67,551 confirmed cases. Of those 67,500 cases, 2.2 thousand have died, unfortunately. So there's 65.2 thousand cases active. Now, if we go back a little bit ago, let me hop off this real quick. Cases.
Oh yeah. So here's another thing. The number of new cases will be proportional to the total number of cases. That's something characteristic of exponential growth. So if you have 100 cases, right, and you have 100 cases and you see 10 new cases per day, right, then by the time that you get to 100,000 cases, you'll see 10,000 new cases a day. So it's roughly proportional. It is not a linear graph, and that is very important to understand. Just, go into Desmos or GeoGebra or whatever graphing resource you have, and just type in y equals e to the x, and then just play around a bit with a few x values. See how long it takes before that graph, exceeds the number of human people there are, right? So
yeah.
Exponential growth is frightening, and thankfully diseases don't truly follow exponential growth, but at first they do. But yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So yeah.
Yeah, 5 days ago, which was March 31st of obviously 2020. NYC hit 1,000 deaths. Yeah, that's what I could find. I'm sure if I looked more into it, I could figure out the cases. But I do just want to bring up that currently, like I said, there are now over 2,000. And that was just in a span of 5 days. And obviously not everyone that gets the virus dies. So that means that a lot more people had got the virus than have died. So the deaths more than doubled in 5 days.
Wow.
Which is like scary in and of itself and absolutely shows that little exponential growth. And if you go to the Johns Hopkins thing, which is the screenshot we have up.
Yeah. We have a link in the description for that.
Yeah. That right there is just perfectly exponential growth. It's not perfect, but pretty close.
Yeah.
And that's the curve. And we're going to be talking about what flattening the curve means later. I'm sure you've seen the CDC projections. That is also demonstrating exponential growth.
Yeah. All right. So after exponential growth, we have logistic growth. Yeah. And logistic growth is similar to exponential growth, except it is more realistic. So if you look at like the -6 to -2 section, that is practically identical to exponential growth. They look very similar, which is why, although it looks like we are on an exponential curve with the increase of this disease, we are actually on a logistic growth. So exponential growth, as x tends towards infinity, y will also tend toward infinity. And that is unrealistic because at a certain point, you hit 7.8 billion people, and the question is, how can more people possibly get infected if 7.8 billion people are already infected? Because that's everyone, right? So logistic growth offers a cap for that. And what it does is that it starts off increasing exponentially, but then once you get about halfway up, you start to realize the disease doesn't have as many people to infect because so many people are recovered and are now immune to the disease. So the disease isn't able to infect as many new people, and it levels off, and then it's done. So that's the logistic growth. And there are a lot of models that use they call it, there's susceptible, infected, and recovered. That's the SIR graph. And you'll often get a logistic growth curve. And so the susceptible population, if you start at -6, pretty much everyone is susceptible. Oh, gosh. I'm talking like Joe Biden right now. Okay. If you look at susceptible people at -6, almost everyone is susceptible to this disease because they can be infected, but they are currently healthy. Then once you get to around -2, you start seeing the number of infected people increase and the number of susceptible people is, starting to decrease. So then it continues to increase and more people get infected and less people are susceptible because they're already infected. You can't infect someone that's already infected. So that's what this kind of takes into account. And then once we get into the recovered, or sometimes the models, they call it removed instead of recovered because not everyone necessarily recovers from a disease. So removed kind of is a catch-all term. What ends up happening is that the infected will decrease eventually. And that is what, should I go to this? I'll go to the next slide. Unless you have anything else to say.
Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
So this is the derivative of logistic growth. And what this takes into account is that after a week or 2 weeks, I don't know how long it takes, but eventually people get better from the coronavirus. And the amount of time it takes to get better is not like on an exponential curve. It's just set increasing. We just got a comment. and it's in Russian, so I do not know what that says, unfortunately.
I can.
Can you get the translation? Yeah, I'm just like, all right.
It's just gonna be like, I have your IP address or
God.
something.
That well, let's not judge. Let's not be too quick to judge. Here's what
all it says is streamer go.
Streamer go.
That's probably not an exact translation, but all it says is 2 words: streamer go, and go we will.
Yeah.
Das Vidania, Demas.
Yeah, because I was about to ask, how do you understand what we're saying? But then, have a comment in Russian. Yeah. So. Incredible. Streamer go. I guess we'll just continue.
Streamer go. That is like one of the most sort of fake things I've ever moved. Just a Russian comment saying "streamer go."
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I want that to be the title of this episode now.
Streamer go. Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, so the length of time it takes to recover from the coronavirus is kind of standard. It varies a little bit, but like it'll take a certain amount of time. And because of that, you will end up getting the derivative of the logistic curve if you graph the number of active cases instead of the number of cumulative cases. And so this gives you this little hump that rises and then falls. And this is very important. This is the number of infected people over time. And if we look at this diagram up in the top right from Michigan Medicine, it shows the difference between a fast pandemic and a slow pandemic. And the difference is how stressed our medical systems become. So if our logistic curve quickly goes from 0 to its final value, if it's a quick disease, while it might be like, yeah, just rip the Band-Aid off, get it over with, the problem is the number of infected people will surpass the number of required hospital beds. So people will go untreated, and that will actually increase the mortality rate because people will not be able to get the help that they need. But if you have a slower logistic growth and therefore a smaller derivative, you end up with this wider curve. And even if the same number of total people get infected, this wider curve is more optimal because less people will die because the medical system will not be as overstressed, right? So this is very important. That is why we are trying to flatten the curve. That is why we are all staying indoors, why so many businesses have been temporarily closed down, why so many public places are closed down. It's because having a smaller derivative of logistic growth, having this smaller derivative and the smaller number of active cases will actually allow us to help more people and make this disease less deadly. So, yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about plagues or pandemics in the past. And obviously there were not a lot of steps taken. I'm just looking at the CDC graph or the Michigan Medicine, which was adapted from the CDC, as it said in the bottom left. Looking at that graph, it shows you the difference between if we take steps to slow the spread versus if we don't. And when we talk about these pandemics, especially the earliest ones, there were not a lot of steps taken, which is probably one of the reasons why the death rate was so high. A third of Europe died from the Black Plague, which we're talking about. They weren't really taking many steps to make sure that they were clean. They killed rats when they saw them. So I guess that's a step. But there were they didn't wash their hands, they didn't change their clothes. Had communal toilets, all that kind of stuff. It was really disgusting, which was a perfect like I keep saying, breeding ground for a virus to spread.
Yeah, they unfortunately didn't have germ theory in 1367,
Yeah.
They thought it was bad smells caused disease. That's why they have those old doctors, the plague doctors. But yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, so definitely, we want a slow pandemic, not a fast one. I think it was Britain that, like, briefly, they were like, you know what, we're just going to rely on herd immunity. Everyone's going to get sick, then they're going to get better, and we'll be fine. And then, like, 3 days later, they're like, never mind, everyone stay inside. We cannot handle this. So, yeah, they backpedaled on that quickly because it's not a good idea. You want a slow pandemic, not a fast one. So, yeah, that's the current situation. So should I go to the next slide?
Yeah,
all right.
Sure.
So we have pop culture. So pandemics, I mean, they're very prevalent in our psyche right now. But if you think about it, they kind of always have been. People have a fascination, I think, with morbid situations. There's always been the, like, post-apocalyptic movies, you know? So it kind of makes sense that there's a lot of pandemic movies as well. So yeah. Should we go to the first movie?
Yeah.
All right.
Contagion, which we showed off earlier. Can I explain this movie poster for a second? Okay. Right. Lawrence Fishburne is having the most intense conversation with the girl who's on her phone on the bottom, right? Mm-hmm. They're just like hashing out what to do, you know? And then Matt Damon on the top is reaching his hand out and putting his hand on Gwyneth Paltrow's head. It's just two different views of that. The girl on the top has no idea what's going on, and Jude Law is just giving the entire situation his Jude Law stick. When I saw this, I just thought it was hysterical if they were all like in the same room together.
Yeah.
But yeah, Contagion, this was the good one, right? This was the one that they said was actually quite accurate. So yeah, I think people came out and said that this is probably the most accurate movie to what an actual pandemic, a global pandemic would be like. And especially now, I haven't watched this movie, but if I sat down and watched it, or if any of you guys sat down and watched it, you can compare it to what's happening right outside.
It's a pretty good movie, but we have it a lot better than they do in this movie.
Yeah.
This movie's like a worst case scenario. Because coronavirus, the lethality rate is like 2 or 3%. And in this movie, their hypothetical disease, I think it's like MEV1 is what they called it. It's like 20 or 30% lethality. So it is very deadly. A lot worse than coronavirus.
Yeah. But so as you can see, like, Max prefaced this thing or this section by saying humans like looking at stuff like this because, well, for two reasons. One, because we like watching horror movies, right? Because we like experiencing fear, which I explained in 128 seconds. But secondly, we look at this, we watch this movie to make us feel almost like safer, that we've already anticipated like viruses, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that's why we create and why we watch movies like these, you know. And like I said earlier, now we can actually use it as like a cool comparison to what the actuality is. So I just think it's interesting that we can make these movies, and I wouldn't really say predict, because obviously before this movie was made there were many terrible plagues, but they didn't know that the coronavirus was going to blow up and this movie was made, you know?
Yeah.
And next we're going to talk about a little more ridiculous one.
Well, anyway, but yeah, Contagion's pretty good. The plot, so this is a bit of a spoiler, but I suggest you guys watch it, and I'm going to spoil it a little bit just because I'm going to talk about the plot. So the beginning, the way that the plague starts isn't revealed until the end of the movie. So it's kind of like the whole movie's like in chronological order, except at the very start of the movie it says day 2, and you're like, day 2, what about day 1? And so at the end of the movie they show day 1. And so day 1, right? It's very fascinating. So and it also involves some like poetic justice, right? So Gwyneth Paltrow, she works for this company that has like operations in China, and the disease starts in China. But yeah, so her company is shown at the end like bulldozing some trees in China, right? And so a tree they bulldoze ends up having like some bats fly out of it because they've just had their like habitat destroyed, right? So the bat ends up like flying over this like pig farm and it eats a mango and then it like drops a piece of it. And that falls into the pig farm. A pig eats it. And then they bring this pig to like, this restaurant, and then this chef starts preparing it and working on it. And so then Gwyneth Paltrow, who's there on a business trip and like meets the chef, shakes his hand, and then bam, that's how the disease started, right? That's pretty cool. Crazy convoluted, and also like, kind of poetic justice, don't you think? Because they misplaced, like they caused themselves to get the disease. Obviously they don't deserve it, right? But I just found that fascinating, like very literary, because because it's like her company that kind of caused this. But yeah, so what happens is that this disease ends up spreading, and the movie follows a lot of CDC workers and epidemiologists, and they consulted a lot of people like this. And so it's considered pretty accurate. Another interesting thing, Jude Law, right? The guy bottom left with the crazy like makeshift hazmat suit. He plays like the Alex Jones. Like he's a conspiracy theorist type guy, like on the internet, and a ton of people like follow him. And so I thought that was pretty interesting, a pretty like funny character to have, because like that's true. You see all this misinformation, and this is from what, like 2011, I believe, 2009, 2011, somewhere around there. So this was 9
made
years.
in 2011.
2011. Okay, so yeah, this was 9 years ago, and they have basic phones, some internet, right? But if you look at the current coronavirus pandemic, there is so much misinformation online, and of course, we are also online. So don't take everything that we say at face value. I put links in the description that link to the CDC and Johns Hopkins, so reputable organizations. So definitely, you got to do your own research. Can't just trust everything, We are not a verified source. However, we do hope that we provide some useful information. But yeah, so Jude Law is like conspiracy theorist guy. So then another plot point is that eventually they figure out a vaccine and they create a vaccine. But the problem is that it takes a while to produce 300 million vaccines for 300 million Americans, right? And so the question is, who should get it first? Like what? And that becomes a controversy. They end up doing like a draft. So you know how for when America does conscription, what they do is they do this like kind of like Powerball lottery type thing, except each ball has like a birthday on it. Do you know about this, Sebastian? Have you heard of this?
I've not heard about this.
The way that they do the draft in America is that they get this order of birthdays, right? So 365 days in the year, and they pick out the order. So they'll have like March 30th, February 9th, like October 27th, just random dates. And the order of these dates ends up determining who gets the vaccine in this movie. But in real life, this is what America does. This is what they did for the Vietnam War. So the first people to be drafted were unlucky because their birthday was picked, which is like, happy birthday, right? Like that sucks. So they end up just doing this like Powerball lottery machine and reading off the birthdays like it's the draft. And my father, he said that's probably not the best way to do it. That would be a little unrealistic with the vaccine, because for coronavirus, for instance, if they made a vaccine, the first people that should get it should be the elderly and the immunocompromised, right? So by doing this sort of birthday system, you don't optimize it at all. But this disease, the contagion disease, just kind of like kills everyone, and they don't say that like one group is more at risk than another. But for the coronavirus, there are definitely some people that are at risk. So a vaccine wouldn't be applied randomly. It would be best to apply it like according to risk, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so an interesting thing about Contagion is that civil unrest ends up brewing. And like, I don't want to be conspiratorial and I don't want to be negative, but, you know, civil unrest might be possible in some localized instances. We saw in Italy recently, there was looting of grocery stores because people were not getting any money because, you know, everyone's at home, so they're not working. A lot of people have lost their jobs because of this. And so they were like looting grocery stores and they had to bring in police to stop that. And that is frightening. In Contagion, of course, it's a lot worse because it's much more of a life or death situation because it's like 20%, 30% chance that this disease will kill you, whereas coronavirus is like 2-3%. So people are like scrambling. People will like beat each other up at like a pharmacy. Like they break the window just to like get the treatment, and they also fight over food and stuff. So hopefully that doesn't happen as much during this pandemic, but I would be surprised if it doesn't happen in like certain locations. I mean, it already kind of happened in Italy a little bit. So yeah, you just got to be careful of that. But yeah, very good movie. I highly recommend watching it. Yeah, that's what I would say. So,
nice.
Yeah. Next movie is a little like different.
A little silly.
Yeah, so we've got Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman, Renee Russo, and Morgan Freeman. So in this movie kind of shows a pandemic that gets stopped before becoming a pandemic. It's like stuck in this one town. It never leaves this one town. But the movie isn't the most realistic. So, okay. So the disease, they end up quarantining this one town, right? And then it's so like the president in this movie, once given all this like information that like this one town has it, and they're given projections like it'll spread to the rest of the country in 2 days, we gotta stop it. And the outbreak disease is so much worse than the contagion disease. The lethality is like 100%. It is
Holy
like
crap.
stupid. It is unrealistic. But yeah, so like the president and like the higher ups, like they hear about this and they're like, okay, you know what, just firebomb this town. Like it's better than like sacrificing the entire country, right? So they're planning on like sacrificing this town of like 2,000 people instead of letting it spread to the rest of the country. But then Dustin Hoffman is like, no, like we're gonna like get the vaccine, we're gonna get the cure, and they somehow like manufacture a cure in a matter of like 3 days and like come in like last moment and, you know, end up preventing this town from getting firebombed. And then they arrest the bad guy because there's got to be a bad guy. The bad guy, he was like not telling the president that they were getting a vaccine treatment. Like he was withholding information, they say. So then they arrest him and they're like, yay. So yeah, very like campy, like, you know, not realistic. Yeah, so it's an interesting movie. I wouldn't recommend it as much. Yeah, so in Contagion, it takes them like 130 days or something before they get a vaccine, right? And that is rushed. That is like mega rushed. Like our coronavirus, like they think like 1 year or something, I think. And that is also...
It was like 12 months to 24 months.
12 months to 24 months. Yeah. And that is also a big rush for a vaccine. Every flu vaccine is actually made 3 years before. So, like, they finalize the flu vaccine 3 years before you get it. So it's 3 years old flu vaccine. Like the design, at least. Because the FDA needs to approve it, and that takes a long time. So Contagion is already, like, super rushed. But they make this cure in a matter of like days, right? And it's crazy. So the disease in this movie comes from monkeys, okay? And it starts in Africa instead of China. This movie is a little older. I think it's like 1995-ish. So it's like, you know, like different geopolitics, right? So yeah, so they bring in this like monkey that they like poached from Africa, and like it ends up entering the U.S. and well, this monkey is actually, it wasn't poached. It was like they were using it for scientific lab purposes. Like they go out into the wild and they collect these animals to be like used in experimentation. And so then this one lab worker like sneaks out the monkey, and that's because he has this deal with this like pet shop where the pet shop owner, like, he makes bank from like selling like exotic animals or whatever. So he like bribes the guard and like sneaks out one of these monkeys that's meant to be for lab research, and he sells it for a lot of money. Or that's what he tries to do, and that's what he had done. But the shop owner, for whatever, oh, it's fine. The shop owner, for whatever reason, is like, no, I don't like this monkey. I don't need it. So then the guy's like, oh, okay, I guess I'm just going to release you into the California wilderness, right? And that monkey is the one that ends up having the outbreak disease. So the guy that snuck out the monkey, he gets infected and then dies from it. The pet shop owner gets infected and dies from it, but like they have spread it to a few other people. So like, yeah, the guy with the monkey ends up like getting his girlfriend infected. And then like a lab researcher doing an autopsy, like he gets infected. And then that's how the entire town gets infected. But yeah, so then eventually, right, by the end of the movie, the way they make the cure is that Dustin Hoffman like finds the original monkey and uses it, like uses the antibodies in its blood to reverse engineer a vaccine. And I'm sorry, that just, no. Very, very not good. But yeah, so they have this town, right, under strict military lockdown. They have like thousands of troops just guarding this town's border, like not letting anyone in or out. And I'm like, how are you concerned that the disease is going to spread? It will not spread out of this town. You have more military people than you have actual citizens in this town, you know? But yeah, this movie, it's a little more ridiculous. But it kind of shows, I guess, like how the government might react to a pandemic and how it might take drastic measures that you wouldn't see in just normal life. Like there's a lot of authoritarianism going on recently. Have you heard of that, Sebastian? Or Lynnea? Have you seen the news stories?
Like the government taking away people's rights in times of crisis. You talking about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, there's been some consolidation of power. I think in Hungary, the president just like got the right to rule by decree indefinitely.
Something like that.
Wait, what does that mean?
It means that he basically executive order. So
exactly.
So like the president has the ability in America to issue executive orders, but those executive orders have limits on them and they can be contested in court. But the president of Hungary was just given the right to rule by decree. So this is like unchecked executive power.
Wait, how did that happen?
He was given this power to deal with the coronavirus pandemic so that he could issue quick laws to, mobilize the country quickly in response to the disease, which, yes.
I guess that makes sense. But
right.
But he's going to abuse that, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, maybe. I mean, you don't want to just accuse the person from the outright, but that's the trend. When a government is given extra powers, they tend not to want to give it away. So I think something like in Maryland, they have like unlimited time on this stay-at-home order. Like Virginia is like, okay, it will end June 10th or something, right? And even if they have to extend that, that's better than just saying it's unlimited, because that gives them like a lot of authority. So yeah, it's a little concerning what may happen as a result of this outbreak. A lot of experts have been, like a lot of commentators have been saying that things aren't quite going to go back to normal once the coronavirus is done. Much like how there's a distinct pre 9/11 and post 9/11 like world and policy, a lot of people think that it's going to be pre-coronavirus and post-coronavirus. So that is something that might be fascinating to see in the future. Hopefully it's good, but yeah, there are just some concerns. And this movie, I think, highlights those concerns, even though it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's interesting what you're saying about how there being a pre-coronavirus era and a post-coronavirus era, because I think it's going to be interesting to see how what laws change and how our relationship with like China changes, what the global health standards will be, how they're enforced, all of that stuff,
Yeah, maybe this will finally eliminate the outdated practice of shaking hands, Like,
what would we do instead? You want to salute? I want to salute. Like, just straight up salute whenever I walk into a room.
Yeah, I mean, that would be pretty cool. In Japan, they bow,
Exactly. Bro, I want to bow. I want people to bow to me, It's great.
That's the best greeting. When you meet your friends, just
But then how would you like officiate a deal? There's nothing like making a deal and then
well, I mean, it's just
you know how
written.
people are doing like the elbow touches now?
Elbow touches.
You make a deal, you tap their elbows.
That is weird.
No.
Well, okay. No. How do you like make a agreement official? I think now it's like you're gonna have to just put it in paper. I mean, a handshake was never very secure in like you can't. That doesn't hold up in court, Like, Your Honor, this contract stands. Where's his signature? He shook my hand, so. Right? Like, that doesn't. Yeah, I think.
True.
Yeah, because like even if you were a germaphobe in the past, right? If you don't shake hands, everyone's like, "What's wrong with you?" Everyone's like, "Oh, it's that guy. He doesn't shake your hand." Like they always say, like top 5 ways to like do well in an interview. They're like, have a firm handshake, like not the story, but they're like, you need to have a good handshake. If people like, I really hope that it becomes like socially acceptable not to shake people's hands, because I don't want to shake people's hands anymore. Like, I'm done. I'll jazz hands. Like, I'll do literally anything else, that involves less contact.
You meet someone, just jazz.
Yeah.
You're going to walk up to someone and be like...
jazz hands. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so it's interesting to see what the effects of this will be. But yeah. Should I go to the next slide?
Yeah, sure, go.
All right. Plague Inc.
Plague Inc. I've been beasting. I have been spending quite a lot of my time just trying to beat things on Mega Brutal, trying to do viruses that I haven't had the chance to do, all that good stuff. And I can firmly say that the zombie virus is like impossible to do on brutal difficulty, and also the vampire one is impossible. But this game is, I feel like it's a good simulation. While the numbers might be off, or like the rate at which things happen might be off, all that stuff and like how it actually evolves might again be off. I think it's very good at showing you, like what we talked about at the beginning of this episode, the transmission factor. Yeah. Because like we said earlier, globalism enables plague to spread. The spillover stuff, the cross-contamination of species, allows that virus to spread, and all of that goes into it, And it also, if you don't get certain perks in the game, like if you have a virus that isn't resistant to cold temperatures, then it won't like really infect the cold countries, and that's also like a real life thing. How look, and you can see, especially with pneumonia type thing, countries that are colder actually get hit harder because like pneumonia has to do with your lung fluid buildup, which is not as easily, like that's worse in a colder environment, which is why when people get pneumonia. So yeah, that's what I have to say about it. Also,
yeah. Yeah, Plague Inc. Oh yeah, Plague Inc. is it's an interesting perspective for like pandemics in pop culture, because instead of the pandemic being the antagonist, it's the protagonist. Like, you are the pandemic in this game, and you are trying to wipe out humanity, so it's pretty morbid. However, I think it's still a good representation, because in like showing the steps that you need to take as a pandemic to like spread to more people, it also kind of reflects, like, it impresses upon you as the player, like, oh shoot, maybe I should like change how I live. Because a lot of the game settings, like, there's casual, normal, and like brutal, I think, right? The casual game setting, they're like, no one washes their hands.
And mega brutal.
Yeah, mega brutal too. But yeah, like the casual setting, they're like, no one washes their hands. And then mega brutal, they're like, everyone washes their hand. Sick people are like executed, just like crazy stuff, right? And so you're like, okay, I should probably wash my hands so that I can change the game mode from casual to normal, or normal to brutal, right? Yeah. Play your part in like making Plague Inc. harder. Yeah. So yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like it's a pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyways.
Next up, we got zombie movies.
Yes, zombie movies. So zombie movies are definitely more common than pandemic movies, but a zombie virus, like, it's always a zombie virus, you know? So zombies are kind of a pandemic, you know? A zombie apocalypse is the result of a pandemic. It's people getting infected with some disease, and that disease turns them into zombies. So, I don't know. I think it's an interesting take on the whole pandemic thing, and the reason that it's so popular, too, I think it stems from the fact that when you turn the virus, like, when you give it a personified form, it like makes the audience more engaged, I feel. Do you get what I'm saying? Because in a pandemic movie, it's just people get sick and then they die. But in a zombie movie, it's people get sick and then they try to kill you. And you try to fight back. So it gives the protagonists more of an active role in like fighting off this pandemic, you know? So it's kind of like metaphorical versus like physical, you know? That's why I think they're so popular.
And also, like, sometimes zombie movies can be scary.
Yeah, that's true.
But also,
Zombieland was pretty funny.
Like, yeah, Zombieland was funny. Shaun of the Dead is not. World War Z is probably, I think it's one of the best zombie movies there.
Mm-hmm.
Because it shows like how it can be a global thing. Like, he travels all around the world to like do stuff, you know, and they like have to trace the virus back to its origin, stuff like that. Also, I changed my mic, you guys can tell.
Oh, okay.
But I changed it to my desk mic in my headset because I think my messing up.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I should have thrown Train to Busan in here. Train to Busan is actually a good one because it shows how like people react to a zombie apocalypse, and that's really what The Walking is about. Because on that show, like, the people themselves in the show, like, people kill people way more than zombies kill people. That show, that show was really showing like how society like responds to a zombie. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, zombies.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
All right.
Yeah, Lynnea, how do you feel about it?
I don't know. Even Zombieland gave me nightmares, but that was pretty. It was like a funny movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
We can pop over to the.
All right. So we've got pandemics in history. So pandemics have occurred before, and we have survived them. So this should be a note of hope, I guess. But yeah, also these pandemics were much worse. So like, be thankful that we have modern medicine, modern luxuries, because while increased like globalism and travel, while that does make a pandemic more likely, it also means that like ideas can spread more and like people can innovate better, and that ends up allowing us to treat these diseases better. So, good and bad, right? So yeah, let's start with the Black Plague. So the Black Plague was spread by rats, and this was in Europe in like 1367, and it killed a third of Europe, which is crazy high. That is a lot of people. Yeah. Do you guys have?
But the plus to that is that you were able to wear these Chad outfits that this guy wearing, and I don't know, man. There's something so slick, something so sleek about that. If you walk around like that, you're gonna get invited to all the balls, like all the parties, those soirees.
Soirees. Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of wanna like make a video where I go out in a plague doctor uniform, I wonder how people would react.
I feel like the current plague thing is the hazmat suit.
Yeah.
Yeah. The biohazard suit.
Yeah. But that one actually works.
Modern day plague doctor.
It's not as aesthetic. This one is much more like, just look at it, right? It's iconic.
I think we put a picture of the suits, right?
We did.
Yeah.
But yeah. So the Black Plague.
But yeah, Black Plague. Very bad.
Mm-hmm.
This was in the 1300s.
Yeah, 1367. Let me look at what it
started in it.
1367. I think. Yeah.
1347 to 1353.
Oh.
So,
1347.
Middle of the 1300s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So bad. Killed.
Yeah. So the Black Plague initially spread to Europe. I think it was through the port of Venice, right? Or whichever one was it was a port in Italy, I believe. And
the Sicilian port of
Which port? Sorry, you cut out.
It was a port in.
Okay. Anyways, so yeah, Sicily.
Called.
Okay. I would probably say switch back to that other mic. I'm just gonna be brutally honest here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Anyways, the Black Plague. It's presumed that.
Yeah, no, that's the weirdest thing about Discord, because Lynnea, I can hear Lynnea fine, and Lynnea can hear me fine, but you've actually, Max, you've been cutting out a slight bit, and but when I play it back, when I play the stream back, I can hear myself cutting out, which is weird.
Yeah, Max has been cutting out for me too, and Sebastian a little bit, but not that much.
All right, so I'm back on my head.
Okay.
Yeah, so later on, we're going to switch off of Discord.
I
don't know if it's because of my connection or Max's connection or something like that, but we are actually going to be moving to Zoom or Google Hangouts or one of those things.
Oh yeah, sorry, that was my fault because it didn't work.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
In the later episodes.
Yeah.
So there.
Yeah, we can try both. We tried Zoom already, and that I think would work pretty well. But I can take a look at Google Hangouts. But yeah, so we'll have webcam. Anyways, you can see our disheveled selves. That's what you'll see. You'll see how 100 days without a haircut has treated me. Yeah, I think it's actually been 100 days since I've had a haircut.
Exactly.
What? Today?
Nice.
I don't know. It's around 100.
Exactly 100?
I'll check.
Okay.
Let's see. I'll check.
You keep calendar.
He counts the days.
I count a lot of things. I just like to keep track of. It's 103 today. 103 days. So yeah, it's been quite a while.
No,
that is kind of serious.
I have the dates written down like in a spreadsheet. I keep track of things just let's see. The reason, I don't know, just so that I know, I guess. I don't know. Knowledge is power. Anything I can collect data on, I will. That's kind of my philosophy. Yeah, but the Black Plague, right? I think it started with the Mongols, right? And then it spread to Italy via a port, and there were some rats on the ship that were carrying the disease. They spread into into the port town, and then that spread throughout all of Europe. So, that's pretty crazy because it originated in Europe at this port. And that's kind of what we see with New York City being the epicenter of the infection because, everyone travels through New York City, such a big city. It's the international hub of travel, So it's kind of interesting that we see these trends emerge both in the past and now. Because Italy was a very prosperous, it had many ports that were very busy. Because it's at the center of the Mediterranean, So, yeah, that's interesting aspect of the Black Plague. Yeah, I guess that's all. Yeah. Occasionally, don't...
So, Black Plague, not good.
Yeah. Doesn't the Black Plague
collusion
bubble up every once
Next up, we have a very
Yeah. Anyways. I'm pretty sure,
Yeah, we have small...
Yeah.
Okay, we...
Yeah.
Next up, I should say, is...
Yeah.
Disclaimer, we...
Huh. Okay.
Smallpox erratic.
I'll touch on that in a second. Okay, I think it might just be my Wi-Fi that's making, I don't know, or someone's Wi-Fi, because you were good, earlier in the stream, but then I feel ever since you went to that mic, it's just been downhill. But yeah, anyways.
Oh, I'm on my... Yeah, I could join and rejoin the call.
Yeah, maybe try that. Okay. Yeah.
And we are back.
Okay. Yeah, Discord has been fired. Yeah, I'm pretty sure smallpox is eradicated.
Honestly.
However, many governments, they do keep it in labs to test on, which is frightening.
That's not good.
The U.S. government keeps smallpox in a lab. Doubtless, Russia and China do too, because if we do it, then why won't they do it, So yeah, smallpox is eradicated. For the most part, it just exists in these labs. So, if there were ever to be
The last case was in 1970.
Okay. Yeah, 1970. Yeah, if there was ever to be a crazy war, it's making a return, right? Let me just tell you. Let me tell you. If it's all-out warfare. But anyways, smallpox is mostly eradicated. And let's see, which specific outbreak are we referring to here? Which pandemic? Because the most notable...
Talk about the Native Americans.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So smallpox, didn't it end up killing, I think, 90% of the population?
I could check.
Yeah, so this is an interesting thing. A lot of Europeans were more immune to smallpox because it had been around for such a long time. And once
90%.
90%, yeah. So that's crazy. Once Europeans started colonizing the Americas, it spread to people in the Americas, and they had no immunity to it. They had never come in contact with that disease, so their bodies quickly shut down. They were not able to handle it, and it ended up having 90% of their populations getting killed. And that is something alarming with the coronavirus, is that it is the novel coronavirus. Like you've heard people say, novel coronavirus, right? So that means it's new and we don't have much immunity to it. And that's bad, because when say the flu comes around, we've all probably had the flu before, 1 year or another. I had the flu like about a month ago, and I got better from it. And since I had the flu, I now have more immunity to it. So the next time I get the flu, my body will be able to handle it better. But this coronavirus is just something that no one has been exposed to before, so that makes it particularly deadly. And so that's similar to smallpox right here. Another interesting thing about smallpox is that I think smallpox is where humanity saw the first vaccine to things. Like, this is the disease we first invented vaccines for. So
I think that's...
So basically, there's a similar disease to smallpox called like cowpox, I believe, right? And it's kind of like the same thing, except it affects cows. So this doctor was like, he was like, okay, anyone that gets smallpox doesn't get it again. So he's like, I wonder why that is. It must be that like once you get the disease, you become immune to it. So he figured out like, hey, wait, what if I give people cowpox, which it was a lot less severe? It would be a disease. It would affect you for a few days. You would get a fever, but then you'd get better again. So he started intentionally infecting people with cowpox so that they wouldn't end up getting smallpox. And that's where we have our first vaccine. And nowadays, we have vaccines that you don't even need to get slightly sick from. You can just be 100% A-OK and not end up getting a disease, which is pretty great. So, yeah.
All right.
You guys got anything on this?
About how people like have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how true this is because I don't remember if my brother it. It's just that one of the first like coronavirus cases was virus test.
Here, wait. I'm going to.
I don't know how.
I'm going to exit the Discord call and then return because it might be me. Let's see. Because this is not going well. My Wi-Fi is fine. Okay. All right. Okay. Are we all good? We all good? Huh. Here.
Oh, yeah, I can't.
This doesn't look good. Okay, there we go. It says I'm connected. 55 milliseconds. Is that good? 58 milliseconds?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
what does that mean?
I do not know. I just know you want it to be low. Okay. So, yeah. Sorry, what were you saying before?
Oh, I don't know how true this is. I don't remember if my brother and my mom said it, but they thought it was weird that, because you were talking about how smallpox, like, the government has it or whatever, that one of the first corona cases was right near a virus test.
Yeah, that is true. It is, yeah. So a lot of experts, they are saying that the coronavirus was probably just a natural virus, like it was just something from the environment. But it is true that right in Wuhan, China, there is like a level 4 bioresearch facility. So that has led to a lot of conspiracy theories. Yeah. So you might want to do some research on that. But yeah, it is not a bioweapon by all accounts, right? Oh, what happened?
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
Anyways,
yeah. I just switched the region.
Oh, okay.
Pretty cool. But yeah.
Okay.
Should we move on to the...
Oh, yeah, I just want to say quickly that the coronavirus is, like, experts don't think it's a, like, bioweapon or anything. That's a conspiracy theory, but it is suspicious, I'll admit. I'll admit, right, that it is like highly suspect that there is like a bio research facility right there. Like that is a pretty suspicious thing. But we are pretty sure that it's just a natural virus. So, yeah.
I don't know. I remember my brother saying it, and I was like,
yeah. So it's just, it is true that there is a facility there. It's just like, it's dicey. It's dicey waters of topic conversation,
yeah.
But yeah, that does delve into conspiracy theories a little bit. So yeah, let's just go to the next one. All right. So we have the Spanish flu of 1918.
I like their map.
Yup.
These masks quite tough.
Yeah. So the Spanish flu, how many people did it end up infecting? I think it was like a quarter of the world's population, right? And
I could check.
Okay, yeah, you could check that. Check the like lethality rate too. See how many people died from it. But yeah, this was a very bad disease, the Spanish flu, and it ended up killing a lot of people.
Yeah, confirmed 500 million confirmed cases.
Okay. And at that time, the world's population was 2 billion. So that is 25% of the world's population got this disease.
Quick math.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, continue. What was the lethality?
It only the lethality, it was 50 million deaths.
50
and
million.
It only lasted from January 1918 to December 1920.
Wow.
So that's 3.
Yeah. So over the span of 3 years, that's like 2.5% of the world's population died, which is crazy. Hopefully, the coronavirus does not get that bad. I don't think it will. I think we are better prepared now than we were for a pandemic. But yeah, this like hit the world like crazy. Killed more people than World War I, which was, the big like killer of the time. Like it was all about World War I. But the Spanish flu was like in the background quietly killing. But yeah, it's very interesting. The Spanish flu, you saw like a lot of healthcare, like hospitals and stuff. They were totally overwhelmed by the Spanish flu. And there were multiple waves of the Spanish flu, which is another thing that's concerning because, say that like everything's all good by like May and we're ready to go out again. But then, in October, wave 2, COVID-20, right? Like that wouldn't be good. So yeah. So it's an interesting disease. Do you guys have anything on this?
Let's hope we don't like have anything near what the Spanish flu was.
Yeah.
Because pretty.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say. That's
right.
Me.
All right. Yeah. Let's see.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Oh, yeah. Here, wait. I'll just say one more thing about the Spanish flu.
Let's not talk about the elephant in the room.
This was the first disease to occur during, like, the era of modern medicine. So people knew that viruses existed. They knew what they were. They knew what bacteria was, right? Germ theory exists at this point in history. And I just find that fascinating because the Black Death, smallpox, it's just like, oh gosh, what are we doing? They just do not know. Plague doctors running around, like cutting people's arms off and saying that cures them. Like,
oh my God.
Right? Right? Like, so this was an interesting disease because it was the first one that occurred in the era of modern medicine. Even though that was, 1910s medicine, that's still better than like 1700s medicine, But yeah, anyways, yeah. Okay, let's talk about coronavirus. Bam. Okay, so currently there are 1.26 million confirmed cases worldwide, and in the United States, that's 330,000. So the United States number is probably a bit more accurate than the worldwide cases. The worldwide cases is likely higher than what's reported, than what's confirmed, just because not every country is as reliable of a resource, cough, cough, on right on their numbers. Not everyone is as like reliable of a resource, but we do know in the US it's a third of a million, which is crazy. In a matter of a few days, like by next week's live stream, we'll probably have 1 million in the US alone. Yeah, that's just the exponential growth, you know? So yeah, we'll see what we'll update you guys next week's live stream. That's what we'll do. We'll just talk about it for like 5 seconds, but yeah. So yeah, how do you guys feel about this? What have you guys been doing like during self-isolation and quarantine and stuff?
You know, been working on 128 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Been eating a lot of.
Same.
I'm just trying to make my voice, or I'm trying to project my voice so that my.
Yeah.
I'm trying to talk to the back row as some
theater
linguist
people.
Professors.
Yep.
So I have been having a decent time. You know, I finished watching Breaking Bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I have figured out how to make hard-boiled eggs. I kind of knew before. Now I
Didn't I have to?
No.
When Marcia
you
yes,
had to start teaching me,
yes.
but now I know. Now I don't have to look it up anymore.
You literally just put an egg in boiling water.
Yeah.
I may be a genius, but I'm not a smart man. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like people have been having a way worse time than I've been having, you know, because so much of my work is tied to computers that I can.
Yeah.
I've been listening to a lot of music, which I can just do indoors. I can exercise inside. I have an exercise bike, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I just miss my friends, you know.
Yeah, I'd much rather be in school.
Yeah, and also, like, teachers don't know what they're doing. If you're a teacher and you're watching, quit your job, bro. You don't even know what you're doing.
Wow. He comes right out and says it. Yeah,
bro.
I kind of like being at home. I don't know. I'm a very work-at-home type person. I think something that might result from this coronavirus pandemic is that we as humans have finally learned how to utilize technology. So I think a lot more like online school, online work will crop up, and like people will realize, hey, wait, we don't really need to go into work. Like we can just do this work from home, you know? So I think that's something.
That a lot of that stuff is in Eltham, like my story, because it's so far in the future.
Yeah.
Like pretty much everyone just like works.
Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, so coronavirus. So we're in different states, right? And so being so close to the epicenter, the New York City epicenter, what's it like? What laws are passing? You know, like what's going on? Is there madness in the streets, right? Like what's the deal?
Nah, there's not really madness in the street. Just like, I don't know. Like all the supermarkets are empty.
Wow.
Like the mayors of certain towns have come out like, y'all are screwed, you know? But I feel like we're not taking it any worse than anyone else in the U.S.
All right. Yeah, down here in, the southernmost state in the country,
the sun
other than
shines.
Hawaii, it's interesting. So we weren't taking it as seriously as at first, But then our governor was like, okay, anyone from New York must be quarantined. So if you come from New York to Florida, you will be forced to self-quarantine for like 14 days, I think. So yeah, that's interesting. It's weird. It's weird. Like the EU, the Schengen zone, that's gone to bits, right? And a lot of states, like Rhode Island has like sent out the National Guard to like hunt down New Yorkers, to make sure that they're like self quarantining.
You are harboring New Yorkers under your floorboards. Sorry.
Exactly. Yeah. So the states, like the unity between each of the U.S. states, is decreasing a little bit. I wouldn't quite say collapsing. That would be a bit over dramatic, but because it's unconstitutional, they can't actually like close down the borders between the states. Although I think a lot of states, governors and legislatures would like to do that right now. They can't actually do that. But yeah, it's weird. It's a weird time. Yeah. So yeah. It's been weird, like, not to go out much. Like, I would say for the most part I enjoy it, but it's also like bad in some ways to not be able to go outside. It's like cabin fever, but I do like not having to do things outside, right? Because it always feels like such a drag to actually like get dressed and like get up and do stuff. You can just do your work in your pajamas, That's what I like.
I feel like it's so like unmotivating to do your homework because like since I started high school, I take academic support, which I like do all my work there. I haven't done work from home since middle school. I'm like completely unmotivated to do.
Yeah,
takes me like all.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, but yeah. So this is a weird time. But, we'll get through it, right? And the history books will look back at this and be like, huh, that was interesting. I wonder, like, I think, hasn't the U.S. death toll, it's like exceeded the death toll from 9/11. So this is a very significant historical event.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting to live through it. Let's take a look at these pictures. So, yeah. Lynnea, would you like to explain the pictures to us?
I mean, I have like a list of things my mom said if you want me to read out those about the work in the hospital.
Sure, yeah.
All right, so they're running out of supplies, like ventilators, oxygen masks. Well, not oxygen masks, but like oxygen and masks.
Yeah.
My mom said they wanted nurses to actually sign out one mask per person per week, but they were refusing to do that because, I mean, how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
They're also running out of rooms. She was saying how they have to make makeshift, and almost the whole hospital is just corona patients. Like the pediatric section, they moved to different hospitals. They also low staff, and they work 16-hour shifts with almost no breaks. And she works nights, so sleeping, which I'm assuming makes for really high anxiety situations.
Yeah.
Where one of my mom's friends had to actually leave work because of an.
Oh wow.
Oh, also the middle picture, they ran out of places to put patients in the morgue. So that truck is like, how like they store food in like.
Yeah.
That they're putting patients in those because they're running out.
Like dead body.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Like. Yeah. And it's because there's just so many people dying. Like my mom had 6 patients.
Gee.
Wow. Yeah, we have some.
Yeah, and then the last picture is my mom in like that.
Yeah, that's very similar.
I
would say that's very similar to the Contagion movie. They have those plastic sheets that like go over your entire face. They had that in the movie. But yeah, so we've got some chat. We've got Johan says, we're getting amazing educations. Thank you. Yeah.
Indeed.
It's interesting. When I watch content like videos and live streams about the coronavirus, I always wonder which video clips will make it into history textbooks in the future, right? And I'm like, will it be us? Probably not. But
Ooh, yeah.
probably not, he said in 2020. Right? In the history textbook. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, so
Yeah,
here are
I know.
some...
I think Markiplier's video about it is gonna be.
Yeah.
That would still be cursed if you just see Markiplier in a history text.
Oh, that is weird. Let me tell you. But yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Max at one point in a history book. Like, not even he becomes some like.
Not even for this, just like something else. What would I do
Yeah,
to get me in a history book?
I don't know. I feel like he'd be. I don't know, something. I don't know. I don't want to say something dumb and be like, "Oh shit, someone already did that."
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe. Anyways, yeah.
Do we want to move on to the final?
Oh yeah. Well, I was just gonna keep going. Something interesting is that there's probably gonna be a baby boom after this because people are stuck inside.
Oh yeah, because everyone's locked up.
Yeah. So
what else is there to do?
This is probably going to be the line that delineates between Generation Z and whatever the next generation is. So like
Generation Corona.
Yeah, so we've just ended the Gen Z. Gen Z's over, guys. Go home. That's what I think. I think once they 20 years from now and they categorize everything again, and they decide what the line is going to be somewhere around here. It's going to be during this year, I would say. So the new generation is no longer Gen Z. That's what I would say. Babies born are no longer.
For generations, is it not like a set time there is?
Well, it's a little loose.
Is that not how that works?
Different people have different definitions, but I would say most definitions will probably end Generation Z around 2020 or 2021. But yeah.
I always thought there was set times for the generation.
Yeah, it's not set.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. Anyways, yeah. So let's just final thoughts. What do you guys? What do you think? Interesting time.
Yeah. Yeah. Pandemics are tough, man. You know, because especially with this one, people are really feeling the effects of social distancing, and I'm lonely, you're lonely, our viewers are lonely. It sucks.
Yeah.
But it's that or people are dying. The CDC stuff is based on science. The recommended activities are based in facts.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love people that are in my video on it, I was don't freak out about it, but take steps to prevent it.
Yeah. It's
and I said
alert,
that before
not
even
anxious
social distancing was
a
thing, So, but people that are oh, it's fine, only old people die from it. We don't want old people dying.
Yeah.
Even that's not true. There was a person in the hospital who was 27. I think there was 2 people.
Wow.
My mom said that were in their 20s that were really, really sick from it.
Yeah. So it's a scary thing, and it can mutate, and it can do terrible things.
Also, think about who controls the government right now. It's old people. So you don't want the government to shut down. If it's affecting old people, then the governments are going to react very intensely,
Didn't Trump say it was a hoax?
No, I'm
not sure about the exact quote on that. I think it's one of those situations where that's not the full context, probably.
I don't know.
But even going off of that, we need to take action, against it, because like I said, people didn't take action against the Black Plague. People barely took action against smallpox. People barely took action against the Spanish flu, and that left millions dead. Now, the coronavirus, just today, I don't think it can possibly leave that many millions dead. But the thing is, if we actually do these preventative measures, we could drop that number down to the 100,000s and the low 100,000s, even at that. So, staying in quarantine, doing all that stuff will actually make quarantine end faster.
Yeah.
because if once we get out ahead of this thing, I guess it's all downhill from there if you look at the curve, but it's all hill for us.
Exactly. Yeah.
So just.
Oh, wait, I have a question. This is kind of random. My mom just texted me because she left for work at like 5:45. She asked if she could watch the stream after it ends.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Okay. I just want to make sure before I told.
It gets saved to the.
I'm assuming she's gonna watch it with her friends. But
you can watch the stream once.
I don't remember if I said anything.
You can watch the stream once it's over.
I just don't remember if I said anything.
You can watch it back. That's how these streams work. They're all on our channel. Yeah, if you guys are bored in quarantine and you're looking for something to waste your time on, you can just go back and watch all of the live streams, So yeah. Anyways, I would like.
So I want to give a big thank you to Lynnea's mom. For providing us with information and with those pictures, and also just. Yes, also. And a big thank you to her again and to all nurses and doctors and all those people for fighting the coronavirus. They're like the real heroes. I see them pretty much as like veterans at this point because they are literally their lives.
She leaves work. Whenever she leaves for work, she goes, "I'm going off to war, bye."
Yeah.
Out the door.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those deaths are actually from doctors because they're willingly putting themselves in these high situations to save lives. And I don't think there's anything more than that. So thank you to the medical team, anyone working in the medical field, and to anyone working on vaccines. And, if we fight the coronavirus together, it's gonna end. It's gonna end fast.
Yeah,
we can all bust out of quarantine when it's done and just have a massive party. Party at my place, guys.
Yeah, and I am very thankful that we were provided with these primary sources from New York City hospitals. That is great. We need more of that. We need more of that information just in like journalism and stuff because there's a lot of misinformation right now.
Should we read the comment thing?
Did Max die?
The chat?
I'm still here.
I think he did.
Okay. Let's just wrap this up.
Let me hear if we can.
I would like to thank
I don't know.
My co-host Sebastian for being here.
The green things sound like
and I would like to thank our guest Lynnea for being here. I would also like to thank you, the audience, for being here. We have had some technical difficulties. I'll see you all next time. I'm going to end the stream because this is just crazy. Okay. Bye.
I think he done it.